Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? So I'm here as always on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, sharing some little thoughts and insights with you. So I wanted to share with you a couple of things of what I've been reading lately. So I now and again will post my current read and comments about it, which is I'm always in a book. So this is what I'm currently reading. It's called Sacred Pleasure by Rianne Esler. It's a book that's been out for quite a while. Hello, thanks for tuning in. And so I wanted to share a couple of things with you from this that I'm getting and how it relates to emotional eating. So, and it has quite a lot to do with it actually, which in some ways I find rather fascinating, and yet at the same time it's kind of, it's just almost sad because we are under such a long-standing cultural idea of what things are and aren't supposed to be and how it affects our eating. So one of the things that this book talks about is a lot of the cultural ideas that we now either take for granted or fortunately more and more people are challenging, but it's all about how a lot of our assumptions have developed about over time in the culture of how we view our body and what's appropriate and the dynamics between men and women interactions and relationships, and how that really sets a stage for a lot of our ideas now about our bodies and about women and how to care for ourselves that can lead to detrimental things like emotional eating and binge eating and health problems. So I just find it really fascinating to see the roots of where all this stuff comes from. So one of the things that I've read a lot, and tell me if this is something that you've understood or know of or have read about, but back in the day, it's been quite a while, then like a few thousand years now, there was very dominant goddess worshiping or matriarchal cultures that were in just about all over the globe. You'd find spots of it all over, especially in Europe and around in what's now the Middle East and the Mediterranean areas. And just the way that they carried, from what people can tell, from archaeological digs, from the paintings, the art, the pottery, the things that's been left behind, the artifacts, and just piecing together how those cultures were. One thing I always find very fascinating is that there was not tools, weapons, paintings, or art that were about destruction, war, killing, violence, of men mistreating other men, men mistreating and abusing women. Hello, Kelly. Thanks for tuning in. Instead, what these archaeological artifacts and the art and everything remaining from those cultures shows is that instead there was a deep honoring of life, of the processes of life, of nature, of the seasons, very much in tune with the earth, very much in cooperation with each other and holding the society together through a means of caring for each other and making sure everyone had what was needed. And a lot of those cultures were more agricultural, more earth, connected to the earth because of the agriculture. And the growing of crops. And then over time, then there were a lot of these invasions from nomadic tribes further from the east, more like towards China and Russia, modern day. And those tribes had a very, very different social norm and a very different way of interacting with each other. And so those tribes were much more violent and aggressive and extremely, extremely male dominant, and very much this idea that they had to assert their power, their will, their aggression over nature, over other people to create the lone man on top. Hello, thanks for tuning in. And so it was just interesting how when these nomadic tribes came into these other cultures that were very agricultural, matrilineal, they honored the goddess, they honored life and the nature, everything changed. And, there's a lot of destruction, a lot of violence, but that is what sets up a lot of the norms, the assumptions, the way that we interact now that we're still living under. After all of these generations, a couple hundred thousands of years later, we're still influenced by these norms that we just take for granted now. Thanks for tuning in. And so I just wanted to just share that with you, just to bring your attention to, when you're looking at how or why you're doing what you're doing in terms of your food choices, how you view your body, the standard of health that you have, the mindset stuff that we all deal with. If you have cycles of emotional eating, of feeling, down and out about yourself, it's like really look at, be willing to do some exploration with yourself and ask yourself, where does this stuff come from? Where did I learn how to eat? Where did I learn these ideas about what my body is or isn't? Who taught me that this food is bad, that food is not, that I have to restrict, that I have to be so compulsive about going to the gym, about weighing a certain weigh a certain amount, and always have to be on a diet or always be emotionally eating. Just be willing to think about where all that stuff came from. What drives you to do all of that stuff? Because as long as you are unaware of those motivating factors, those underlying beliefs and attitudes that you've adopted either from your family, from your religion, from the media, just society at large, unless you're willing to look at that and see how they've influenced you now, then it makes it really difficult to break those patterns and cycles of emotional eating, of binge eating, or feeling down and out and depressed, and so you're going to go after your favorite sugary comfort foods. But to really get out from underneath that and to be free from that, you've got to understand a bit of the history of how we've adopted these ideas of how a woman is supposed to be treated, of how a woman's body is not for sale, of how a woman's body is respected or not. Just simple things, and yet it's been in place for so long that we don't even think about it. Hello, Jody. Thanks for tuning in. So much of the ideas and social norms about our worth as a woman and how our body is supposed to be treated and how we view our bodies, how we feel comfortable in our bodies. So much of that has its roots in these old societies that had no respect for life, had no respect for nature, of earth, of the woman. And if anything, it was a feeling of great fear of, if the woman is in charge, then it will destroy or it will unravel all of our social structure that we've built upon this domination of one person on this hierarchical chain of how society is supposed to be put together. If that's all we know, and we don't ever do any reading or looking to see what other cultures believed, how they were structured, then you don't have any frame of reference, any other larger context that you can reach towards or choose in place of all of these societal norms and beliefs and attitudes that ultimately are very unhealthy and very disrespectful for the body, for the nature, for other people, for women, for children, for each other. So be willing to just consider that and look at, how does that play out for you? How does that influence your self-esteem? How does that influence how does that influence how you feel about you, how you feel about your body? And then if you have this this idea or this belief system about how you're not really worth that much, or you're not good, or you have to be punished for something that you did or didn't do, based upon these old attitudes that are gone unchecked and unobserved, then you're going to act that out in the way that you choose foods and how you treat yourself and how you dress, how you carry yourself. So a lot of understanding how to free yourself from sugar cravings and emotional eating is to really delve into the mindset, the norms, the social norms and attitudes that we don't even think about anymore, and yet they're still playing out on your dinner plate and influencing the state of your health. So I just wanted to share that with you, encourage you, invite you to look at some of these things, do some research, ask some questions. Don't just go through your day on autopilot, eating whatever comes to mind, whatever feels like it's appealing to you in the moment, without understanding the backstory, the motivation of why you're doing what you're doing. Become more conscious and aware of your choices and being intentional about it, and choose why you're doing something so that it will lead you towards an end of health and well-being and psychological, emotional health that you desire, that you've chosen intentionally, rather than just being at the whim of society and what society tells you to do and all these other voices of what other people's agendas and desires for you are. And then you end up in a place that you're not happy with, you're unhealthy, and you don't feel good about yourself because you haven't found out what's true for you. You haven't been willing to do the excavating research work and really look at why you feel and believe the way you do about yourself, about your body, about your diet, the foods you eat, and about how you care for yourself. So that's my invitation to you. Just be willing to look at that and start thinking about things like that. And so with that, I'd love to hear from you. What of this that I shared stands out for you, that is of interest, that you'd like to know more of? I've got lots of resources, lots of books. I'm always learning, always reading, and I'm always sharing what I learn with you guys, as well as in my study group, which is all about getting free of emotional eating, free of sugar cravings. So if you'd like more information about that, if you'd like to join my study groups, I'm happy to have you. I've got a free PDF cheat sheet guide that I made that introduces you to 5 different factors that need to be addressed synergistically, that when you do, that's how you can free yourself of emotional eating and sugar cravings. So I'd love to share that with you. Let me know if you'd like that, and to be part of my study groups about sharing and learning more of all of this and applying it to your self-care, to your diet, to your life. So let me know if you'd like that. Just leave a drop or leave a comment below, and I'm happy to share all that with you. All right, so thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.